Good morning. It is another Sunday, and here is my Sunday thought. Often as the week becomes to an end, I think, what am I going to talk about this Sunday? What's going to come up? What am I going to be inspired to share with you? Well, I had a client yesterday, and when we were completed our session, I knew very well what I was basically going to speak about today, and that was inner strength. How do we find our inner strength? If you're like me and you've got a few years underneath your life and you've lived a little while, we know that everyone has something that comes up that tests them, maybe brings some hurt, some pain, sadness, all those things that go on in life. So how do we carry on? How do we keep going? What is that thing that makes it so much easier to do, that we can keep going, and that life eventually comes into another normality? I've had lots of those in my life, and where there was one change or after another, or an unexpected event, etc. And I began to think about, after my client left, because we talked about having inner strength, and I gave some concepts and ideas that she could contemplate, because obviously something needed to shift and change. And then I began to realize that for myself, and I can only speak for myself, there was a connection to the divine love that I have felt through for many, many, many years now, since I first encountered it, since I first experienced it, that has helped me. Does it mean that I'm impervious to what goes on? No. Does it mean that in having that energy, or that connection to that energy, has it meant that I haven't felt sad or cried or wished sometimes the world was very different, or that I could have taken back some time and said some things differently? All those things I've done because I'm a human going through a human experience. But also, I have the spirituality, or slash, as I talk about it more today, philosophy, that has helped guide me. On my Wednesday talks, I've been talking about the philosophy of different parts that my study of the tarot has brought me, and the realizations of how we work as humans that's helped. But it's really the connection to, whether you call it universal love, whether you call it God, whether you call it divine love. And in my own words, to me, it's like an essence, divine essence. That connection is what has supported me over and over and over again when things have been uncertain or hurtful or unfair to my mind. Oh, why is this happening to me? And I don't play victim very often, but that sometimes comes up, like, oh, here we go again. So what is this divine love? You see, when you've experienced it, when you have touched into that loving force, you know that you are loved beyond measure. You also know that in that love, there is no judgment of you. There is only love, which also creates support, which brings about an understanding of where you fit, of how everything will be all right no matter what, because that's love supports you. Now, we have a lot of different ways of reaching that. And in some ways, one of the greatest books I read was a little book called By Initiation by Elizabeth Hush, where she tells her story as a yoga teacher, but it has two parts to it. It was kind of modern day, and then there was these memories that she had in Egypt, ancient Egypt, not the Egypt we know today. The information set out in that book, I found, was super. It explained so much. It explained many things. It left me contemplating many, many different aspects of life. And I was able to add that to my, you might say, toolbox, my awareness, my knowledge, my knowingness. And if you can ever get your hands on that book, because that's a lot of years ago now, that's Initiation by Elizabeth Hash. Take time to read it. Just as a novel, it's great, but the learning in it, the understanding of it. And one part in the book, she talks about climbing up to this mountaintop. And it was kind of like a sense of initiation. And she's climbing and climbing. And in the end, what happens is that she sees this other person who is trying to get to the end of the top of this mountain as well and has problems, and she helps them. And the moment that she helps them reach the top, which is, she's still not at the top yet, everything opens up for her. And that was the key, that she gave up her sense to be able to help and support somebody else get there. That's just one little piece of this book on relating to initiation. There were many, many other aspects. And if anyone else is also interested, another book was Winged Pharaoh by Joan Grant. That's more as a novel, but it's well done, and it's a very simplified version in lots of ways of initiation. But it's Joan Grant's books, all of them are just phenomenal. They're past life regression memories written as romance stories. Very, very good books. I learned a lot from her books as well. Well, I didn't expect to take that turn about going into books, but as I just stream this, as it is a live stream and I go forward, what I really wanted to impart, the importance was having inner strength. The importance for you to know that you have a backing of an absolute loving energy that wants you to succeed, that wants you to be happy, that wants you to be joyous, that wants you to be contented, that wants you to deal and handle, because these things that come up, they're handleable. I remember very early in my journey of learning about philosophy, I remember someone saying to me, "You're never given more than you can handle." And what I began to add to that was, and you need to ask for the strength to handle it. We forget to ask for strength. We forget to ask for clarity, because sometimes we get so caught up in the emotionality, we lose all of that. So when we have that clarity, when we have the strength, and when we know this loving force is there for us, and believe me, it is there for every single person. Just think of that. I think we have 9 billion people on the planet. 9 billion people have the ability to utilize that energy, because that energy loves each one of us. The energy, which sometimes comes from the earth, comes from the air, whichever way you work. A lot of people move more into the earth mother and use that energy, which is fine. It's a wonderful aspect, or as I call Father Sky energy, an energy I absolutely love. But it's the combination of knowing that love that resides inside. And when you touch into that love, and I remind myself of that often, because life tends to be tedious and you go through your routine. And then I'll just take a moment and I'll breathe into that inner love that's inside me, because I knew the first time I ever touched into it, it had to be inside me. It was nothing to do with being outside. It was my connection inside. So my thought this Sunday, think about where your strength comes from. Think about how that inner strength that gets you through. Like right now, so many people are still in lockdown, still can't go outside, still just living in basically 4 walls, although there's more than that, in a box. Some people are able to move around. We're lucky where I live. We're being very low and we can move around quite well and easily. But how do you get that inner strength? How do you find that? And have you experienced that universal love? Because it is there waiting for you. And it is there wanting for you to know that you are loved beyond measure. No matter what you've done, you let go of the guilt, because there's no judgment in that love. It loves you. And so that's my thought for today, is loving. And I just want to remind everybody that you can contact me through my website, www.normacowie.com. And I love your comments. Thank you. And I love it when you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I love that. And I want to wish you well. And I'll talk to you next Sunday. Thank you.